I've just had a most remarkable experience, young man. I couldn't possibly expect you to comprehend it, but I'm going to tell you about it anyway.
Hello, and welcome to the Twilight Pwn, a podcast that discusses each and every episode of the Twilight Zone. My name is John. I'm joined by my co-host, Fred.
Hello.
How you doing this week, Fred?
I'm good. The move has progressed to the point where I'm not recording on cardboard boxes on the floor. I'm on the coffee table, kind of stretched out, so that's nice.
Good. You've got all the soundproofing installed on the walls, I assume.
Yeah.
Everything baffled or...
Yeah. I've instructed my girlfriend not to run a bath while we do this, but I don't think she's going to follow along with that. So we may get like a nice period detail from Fred's home life.
Cool. Very cool.
Yeah. How you doing?
We've got a big trip coming up in, a day or two with baby in tow, and we haven't started packing yet. So we'll see how that all works out, but it'll be fun.
Your approach to vacationing is similar to my approach to moving, I see.
Exactly, yes.
Where are you guys headed?
Good old Pittsburgh.
Oh,
family.
Vacation capital.
Yeah.
There's nothing quite like February in Pittsburgh. Yeah,
exactly.
Okay, well, what are we talking about this week?
This week we'll be discussing The Trouble with Templeton. It's a second season episode, the 45th of the production run. It aired originally on December 9th, 1960.
Pleased to present for your consideration Mr. Booth Templeton, serious and successful star of over 30 Broadway plays, who is not quite all right today. Yesterday and its memories is what he wants, and yesterday is what he'll get. Soon his years and his troubles will descend on him in an avalanche. In order not to be crushed, Mr. Booth Templeton will escape from his theater and his world and make his debut on another stage in another world that we call the Twilight Zone.
Cool. Cats did 5 or 6 years in the Twilight Zone.
Right. It's the longest running play in the Twilight Zone, isn't that correct?
You haven't seen Phantom till you've seen it in the Twilight Zone. So we like to do our own stupid Rod Serling style intros. I think I'm up first, so...
Sure.
All right, here we go. What's the trouble with Templeton? Frankly, with his vague health problems, his presumably horrible spouse, and his terminal British accent, it's hard to pick just one thing. Yes, Templeton has 99 problems, and a is one. The young lady in question is his former paramour, a remembered romance whose loveliness has lasted long into his late years. But when Templeton finds himself exiting stage left and knocking on the dressing room of the past, it seems the leading lady of his heart has forgotten her lines. She'll soon teach him a lesson about something. What exactly, we don't know. And that's the trouble with the Twilight Zone.
We should have interesting discussion as this episode moves along.
Did you make a lot of Jay-Z references as well? Or?
No, just from your critical analysis woven into your introduction.
I like that I wove something into something.
Yes.
That shows I'm doing a good job.
Like a fine basket.
All right, go ahead.
Meet Booth Templeton. Previously a stage player par excellence, his priorities presently are preoccupied with pity parties. Templeton has had the unfortunate fate to feel fit, living longer than his love, who left it long ago in a horrific Charleston accident. But tonight, Mr. Templeton will be given the role of a lifetime, a chance to act with a cast that includes his beloved boozy bride and bestie in a special one-night-only production, appearing off the Twilight Zone.
Nice. So this is a second season episode. It's available for streaming on Netflix, Hulu. I think it's probably on YouTube somewhere. But of course, buy the DVDs and Blu-rays and check it out, because we are about to spoil it like a... sorry, I don't know. Once again, I got nothing. I don't know, like a playbill? I just shouldn't say anything at all.
Yeah, I think we should just talk about the plot.
All right, so it opens with a sort of natty gent, Templeton, the titular Templeton, examining his tie collection. Titular Templeton examines his tie collection. And he looks out the window and witnesses a commercial being filmed. It's two young lovers at play. Just a quick little bit of trivia, but it's the same swimming pool as the Queen of the Nile pool.
I had that note. I thought it looked familiar. I was gonna question to see if Grams had covered that.
Yeah, he did. You could definitely expect the lady to turn up at him and deliver a very bizarre wave. That would be
right. It looks like a location. Was this just like some MGM exec's pool, or how did they get the same?
I don't know. I would assume that probably there would be a swimming pool somewhere on the studio. Don't you think?
We'll have to get the old guy from Queen of the Nile on the horn, the one who knew the answer to every question ever.
What was his name again? Kruger.
Kruger, yeah.
He's got two photos of the swimming pool right next to each other. It's the swimming pool.
It was one of those Olympic-sized deals you'd get back in, I don't know, October 1934, something like that.
Pools were bigger then, Marty. That was a real pool. God. Anyway, it quickly becomes clear that the lady frolicking by the swimming pool is Templeton's wife. And she's frolicking with someone not platonically. It's not a platonic frolic. Right. And he's dying, despite the very capable administrations of his butler. Kind of a weird reversal how Templeton's the British guy and his butler seems American. That was off-putting.
I wonder, that might be how British people do it. You know?
Yeah, right, exactly.
Like, to get one back.
Yeah. He like goes home and like brags to all his friends. He's like, I've got a butler from Yonkers.
I wonder if like instead of making them wear tuxedos and be very proper, they like make them wear T-shirts and like,
or, like
beer
overalls
hats or something. Yeah.
Well, I'll be Mr. Templeton. Here's your moonshine.
This is a bit of a stretch, but the hot or not for the butler, did you think he looked at all like the actor who played Shooter McGavin in Happy Gilmore? I think that actor's name is Christopher something.
I don't know. Another esoteric John, hot or not.
See, I thought you might be too good for Happy Gilmore.
I'm not too good. I'm not too good.
Actor.
I'm not too good for it. I just don't. It's been a while since I've seen it.
Okay.
Too good for it. You're the one who's like watching every Academy Award nominated movie since 1922 or whatever.
True.
Like the last movie I watched was Star Trek 4. Okay. And before that, it was The Wizard. Anyway, moving on.
This is childish and all, but he takes a pill from the butler, and seen through our modern lens while he's like leering at his younger wife. Isn't it hard not to just imagine that was a penis pill he just popped?
I don't know, John. You're calling it a penis pill. Is that a technical term? Or?
Well, I just didn't want to get into a problem with our sponsors. We're sponsored by Celexa, and they're not owned by the same company as Viagra. So.
What you need is a peenie pill. Is what you need. I don't know. He kind of has like a weird like self-awareness. He's like, well, I'm an old man and my wife's cheating on me. Let's get through the day. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm old, Marty.
Yeah. There you go.
Oh, Mr. Templeton, you can never be old.
Old and getting older every minute that we stand here speaking.
Technically true.
They say, or at least they've said it in most of my plays, that when a man achieves years, he achieves reason and contentment. I haven't.
I don't know. It's just funny. How old is he supposed to be? This being the early 60s, it's like, is he 35 or 70? Like, it's hard to tell,
From what we learn later, I think we can extrapolate that he's probably early to mid 60s.
Right.
Somewhere in the 60s.
Anyway, this whole scene is funny to me because it's like, as I was watching it, I was like, ugh, like, chill out. Like, he delivers such a performance, but because we learn that he's a theater actor and a successful one at that, it kind of works in a weird way. Did you think they were going for that? Like,
I did, and I had a similar instinct where at moments I thought, like, he's kind of overdoing it, but as if you've been around anyone who's an actor, it's kind of hard to flip the switch, especially when they're feeling a dramatic emotion. Yeah,
he relates to his Yankee butler that he's got this memory of this long ago love.
I've had many contented moments in my life. I do recall some. Long ago. Laura. The freshest, most radiant creature God ever created. 18 when I married her, Marty. 25 when she died.
Go on.
Yeah. Nothing.
Okay, that happened.
Yeah, bummer.
Bummer.
I don't have a hilarious joke about his wife dying young, ready to go in my pocket.
That's what the listeners rely on you for, John. I'm the effete snob.
Well, I think we don't have a jingle for this, but I do have a warning. I think I'm ready to slide back into my traditional role as the sentimental softie for this episode.
Okay.
I might not have my pwn skills might not be as sharp.
Was that like little music box going off like a Pavlovian thing? Like, except instead of your mouth salivating, a tear
right,
started
the tear duct
out.
started. Yeah.
Regardless of
Swelling.
context, a music box just immediately gets you going. Anyway, so Templeton decides to call a halt to the pity party. It's just the vibe is funny. He's like, "Why life is a living joke." To the play, like he's got kind of a funny tra-la-la vibe. Anyway, so he gets going to the first rehearsal of his new play, and you
should mention as he exits. This is one of the times where Rod is in the scene, and it's a little awkward because Rod is in the room.
Yeah, there's a vibe of the two of them like on their way out, going like, "See you, Rod," like, you know.
I actually thought there's a vibe of like you could just see the butler pop his head back in and be like, "Rod, we're going," or "Come on, man,
you want any cigs?" Or
And I don't know if maybe I was overreading, but I know we've talked about that Rod was often uncomfortable doing even these bits, which were usually alone. And I got the impression, I felt like he looked more uncomfortable than usual. And I wonder if it was because he had to like do it
on cue
in the middle of an actual scene with other actors right there.
Yeah, I bet that was it because it was like part of a shot where they were walking by. Yeah.
Right.
So Templeton arrives at the theater to rehearse for his new play. It's the first day of rehearsal for The Angry Lovers. And he learns from the money man of the play that there's a new director on the show, a guy named Art Willis, who's not the director Templeton thought was going to be there.
Right. Another hot or not? This might be a stretch.
Yeah.
The producer...
Okay.
Older Stephen Tobolowsky.
Yeah, I could kind of see that. Yeah.
Bing!
Yeah, he kind of has... He, like, collars him in a very, like...
From the side.
Yeah. In, like, a Ned Ryerson style.
Yeah.
It's Templeton! Yeah. So, when Templeton gets into the theater, he's watching this sort of new young buck director give a little pep talk.
But I say it now and expect each and every one of you to understand it. Michael Franz is producing this play. Mr. Coombs has written it. You have been hired to act in it. And I have been contracted to direct it. So, make no mistake about what we are here to do. And make no mistake about me. I will direct this play my way at all times. Is that clear?
Tan Hut.
You are the bouncers. I am the cooler.
Yeah. It
is my way or the highway.
Yeah. It's weird, like a Full Metal Jacket vibe or something like that.
Yeah, I actually had that note. I thought it kind of comes over more in this other clip from him that's just very shortly after. I think we can go ahead and just have a listen.
Some of us are young. Some of us are old. But neither state precludes any of us, young or old, from ignoring the basic cooperation that will be necessary here. When I direct, there are no significant personalities in the cast of any play. But there are 3 significant dates in the life of a play. The first day of rehearsal, opening night, closing night. The last 2 are related and dependent upon the first. Therefore, the first day of rehearsal is an extremely important date.
Yeah, my note was this is like a cross between the Marine instructor from Full Metal Jacket and that poetry book from Dead Poets Society. Like, there's a real mechanical quality to...
Templeton doesn't like the speech. He's obviously kind of burned by the pwning he just received. So yeah, why does Templeton run away at this point exactly? I was kind of, he's like upset by this pwning, but like, It's almost like someone is like threatening him with a gun the way he runs.
He thought he was going to be showing up for a pleasant experience, and it's suddenly this young buck who's like very domineering, and I think he's just needs to get away and get a drink or something to kind of figure out, do I even want to be doing this play? What's going on?
It's such a plot thing to be like, the character's upset so they run away. It's like, how many times in life has like your boss like chewed you out, and do you just like run away? You know what I mean? You don't physically leave the room, you know?
Well, that's, how timely of you to mention.
Oh, okay. I didn't, yes. But you gave notice.
True.
You didn't flee from the building.
True. Thought about it.
Sorry, little insight into John's daily life. Anyway, so Templeton runs out of the theater in terror and into the back alley, and we've entered the Twilight Zone because rather than the back alley, it's still the back alley, but there's a bunch of people.
It turns out the Twilight Zone was rehearsing in the next set.
Yeah, exactly. And as we pan out, we see that the people are applauding him. Instead of just going in for rehearsal, he's just finished a play, and we see a poster announcing the best play of 1927. So we've gone back in time.
The way the shot's composed, you can kind of see in the background that it's like the Great Seed, 1927. You can see the poster's different. It says 27, and I'm seeing that shot, and I'm like, oh, that's a cool subtle detail. Nice. And then,
we'll get there.
They get closer, and then they zoom in on 1927.
No, I know.
And then he reads that 1927, and then literally someone walks by, and he's like, is it 19... Like, I understand that it's television, and it's definitely television in a different era, so there's, like, the need for emphasis, but I just found it amusing to go from, like, oh, how cool and subtle to, like, hammering it as hard as possible.
When the camera has, like, nothing else in the frame other than the numbers 1927, and a person is saying 1927, it's like, okay, we get it. So anyway, Templeton, sort of to confirm that it is indeed 1927, bumps into that old horndogger who says it's 1927, and not only is it 1927, but his wife, Laura, not bad wife, but good wife, is waiting for him in Freddy's, which is a speakeasy. We soon learn. So yeah, I don't know. It's something about like the concept of being in 1961 and going back to 1927. I remember when I was a kid and I saw The Christmas Story, I thought it was like made in 1955 or something like that.
Right.
Just like your awareness of like what the past is starts to blend together. Especially like if you think about like in 100 years, people watching this episode, the distinction between 61 and 27 won't be that different to them,
Well, I like to think of it more amusing in like 50 years when they make a period piece set in, 2010, or I don't know, they'll make a period piece set in like 1990 and everyone will have iPhones because they're just like, I don't know, close enough.
Yeah, roughly right, yeah. Totally, but it's like, those distinctions that would be so clear to someone watching this in 1961, and then they cut back and you like see a Model T car and I'm like, yeah, right, they had those in 1961, didn't they? I don't know, yeah.
It's a weekly television show, so they couldn't go full bore and like...
Basically, like, each decade just has, like, a thing that's associated with it, and if that thing is in it, like, it's the 20s, so soon we'll see, like, a speakeasy,
Yeah, and a flapper.
Right, exactly, and that's check. Like, exactly, right. Little does he know he's going to go back to 1961 and see, like, a bunch of hippies just, like, dancing around. Thank God I'm back in the present of 1961.
Right.
John and Yoko will be coming over later.
Right. Jimi Hendrix is just thrashing out the Star Spangled Banner solo. Finally, back home where I belong.
Anyway, so Templeton goes over to the speakeasy to meet the good wife. And I really like the sequence where he goes into the speakeasy because he goes into this little antechamber, like an unassuming little room. Freddy, the proprietor, lets him in and then opens the other door, like the interior door of the, like, airlock, the speakeasy airlock. And there's a sort of rollicking, crazy room beyond it. I don't know. I just thought it was a cool little sequence,
I actually got a little tripped up because as he's walking into it, he's on, a set of an outdoor street. And I really thought it looked a heck of a lot like the stoop from One for the Angels. I kind of wondered if Grams had mentioned if it was the same.
I think it's filmed on the lot. Well... I'll have to check it out. Sorry.
I don't know. We maybe compare the photos because it did seem to have the same vibe.
I'll check it out. So, in the speakeasy, all is incredibly 20s-y. I don't know. There's someone behind Laura, like the camera pans over, we see Laura, and there's someone behind her sitting at a table, just an extra. She's got the flapper costume on. She's smoking a cigarette, one of those long holders. She's got a pearl necklace, and she's just sort of like laughing and like
she's reading Gatsby. She's like writing an article for the New Yorker.
Like even at the time, her friends had to be like, "You're kind of overdoing it, Cindy."
Like you're just a bit too 20s right now.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so Booth sits down with Laura. She doesn't seem to react to him as an old man, though, but she asks him to take off his makeup. So presumably the assumption is that he's just come out of a play. He had old man makeup on, so that's why she's not shocked to see him looking like an old man. Anyway, so Booth is trying to have like a special moment with Laura and his friend Barney. Obviously, he's shocked and surprised to be here back in 1927, but they're kind of not having it. Was it clear to you, like, what he wanted them to do? He's like, I'm here, it's amazing, like, I
think he just was overwhelmed by seeing the dead people alive, and so I think he just wanted them to share in the enormity of the emotion with him, and they were just kind of like, it's just like any other night, and we would just want to party and have fun, and he was getting frustrated that they weren't kind of weighing in at the same level. So I don't know.
Just like any other night where you're having a crazy psychedelic experience and thinking we're dead.
Right.
Oh, Booth, will you tell me why on this glad green earth you're wearing an overcoat for on a night like this? Will you tell me now, Booth? I mean, really?
I'm not so certain that it is a glad green earth. Oh, Laura, darling. Barney, I'm not so certain of this earth or of anything in it right now. Oh, please, listen to me, won't you? Laura, something's happened. Something very strange. Please, try to understand. This isn't makeup. I've grown older, darling. In another world, for many lonely years, I've had only a memory of you to live on.
So, he's trying to get through to her and sort of convey the magnitude of how weird this is, but obviously she's not having it.
What would you do in that situation? Would you just try and roll with it and have a good night out on the town with the people, or would you...
I think it's tricky because, like, first of all, the idea that I was wearing old man makeup would not really work, you know what I mean? Wouldn't really hold for too long, so people really wouldn't react to you like they would react to you if you were actually the right age for that time.
Well, as a timeless beauty, I don't think I would have that problem.
True. I don't know. I mean, I think, like, you wouldn't be able to in the beginning, but if you were there for long enough, you'd just get lost in it,
Yeah.
I don't think you could really, like, get loose and cut a rug, like, 20 minutes after, like, realizing that you traveled through time. You know what I mean?
Well, see, I
There's
think
a
that's
longer
the problem.
refractory period.
He does say, he asked Laura if they can go away together and just share some time. I think, if your long-lost love you're seeing, you want to really appreciate it, not just get boozed up and do the Charleston. So he's kind of frustrated that they're not on the same page.
Booth sort of spins on a dime and gets mad at both of them, and he's like, you're both, crappy and horrible because they're not playing along, or they're not really, like, taking him seriously. What happens next reinforces the fact that it's the 20s, because Laura gets up to jitterbug like a lunatic. There's kind of a maniacal air of effort to it, I have to say.
It's a real shame that there wasn't an actual dance floor on the set, because it really just makes her seem all the crazier that she just kind of stands in front of the table and starts flailing.
I know. It's like you go to Chili's, you're having a nice time.
Right.
And then Laura gets up to jitterbug. I mean, there is a band, but there is no dance floor.
Right. And I don't know, it looked like the friend Barney starts kind of doing the Jimmy Stewart. Like, he takes a posture that's kind of a dance, but it just really looks like he's doing a weird Jimmy Stewart impersonation.
Well, the Jimmy Stewart was huge in the 20s, John.
Right. Exactly.
Probably doing like the Cleveland
Chicken.
It was
very forward thinking.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so Booth leaves in disgust. And we get a really cool sort of cinematic moment here, which was pointed out to us by the listener who requested this episode, Jesse Hayes. Booth leaves, and sort of abruptly the music just stops. The set sort of darkens, and all the extras, the people in the speakeasy, look in the direction of the camera, and the scene sort of fades to black with only Laura and Barney spotlit. Sort of very much like the end of a play, almost.
And very much like the moment from Walking Distance,
very much
too.
So. It's kind of like if you imagine that like every scene in every movie is happening only for the benefit of the viewer,
right,
and stops when the viewer leaves. It's like if the camera just stays in the room even after the viewer has left, and everyone just is kind of sad, you know. But it's,
and
it's a very arresting moment, you know.
Yeah, and there's another element, which is during the course of the scene while Templeton was there, it's kind of they overdo the smoke almost. It's supposed to be a smoky room, but it seems kind of like the club's on fire or something.
Yeah.
But then the smoke takes on a different kind of resonance. When he leaves, it starts becoming more like, has like a ghostly
Cloudy,
feel or
yeah,
something.
yeah.
And just the emotion on all the people's face, you know, it's
Kind of haunted.
Yeah, there's a haunted look, and the actress does I think a fantastic job. Her face really conveys this kind of
But what is the emotion?
the emotion I read is like a sorrow and a longing. Like I think that's what was
though?
the intention. And what I see is she just had to like hurt this guy, but she knew she had to do it.
So Booth runs out of the speakeasy, down the street, and back to the theater. And apparently the door of the theater is a fairly convenient time travel portal. It's a real one-to-one relationship, because he runs through the door and he finds himself back in the present day, 1961, and he's holding a script, or there's some script that he picks up that's just kind of around. And the time, where was
Barney had Barney walked over and he was holding the script, which was probably he should have been doing. And the wife, Laura, picked it up and was using it to fan herself because it was so hot in the club, and he ended up holding it for some reason or another
so
from there.
He brought it back from the past. Okay.
Yeah.
Booth realizes that the like ghosts of the past were putting on a play for him alone, to sort of force him out of his ennui and nostalgia from the past and send him back to the present day filled with something. So that's his cue to act like an asshole. So he starts... he really just is a jerk right after this. Like, he just starts being a dick to the director, being like, call me by my last name. Let's get this show on the road, you little ass. Like,
yeah, well, I mean, it's... Yes, I think that's a very amusing way to frame it. I think the other thing is, the other side of it is the director was a jerk, and so he's reasserting himself.
Yeah, I don't know. The beauty of the moral gets lost on me when it's like, one of them is a jerk, so the thing you have to do is be a jerk back to the jerk. Like, I don't know. It's just, I don't know. I fail to be inspired by that. But anyway, he's a jerk, and everybody's pretty pumped about that.
And I hope we can maybe gift this moment, because when he first kind of talks back to the director, the director does a pretty hilarious double take where he's just like, what?
Ooh, I like that you're being an ass. I don't know. Anyway, so the rehearsals get underway, and we kind of pull back in a nice sort of mirror of the speakeasy shot. Only this time, it's the happy present day, the lights are dark, and the actors are busily prepping for what is sure to be a wonderful 2-week run of this play. And then Serling comes on and takes us out.
Mr. Booth Templeton, who shared with most human beings the hunger to recapture the past moments, the ones that soften with the years. But in his case, the characters of his past blocked him out and sent him back to his own time, which is where we find him now. Mr. Booth Templeton, who had a round-trip ticket into the Twilight Zone.
Couldn't afford that fifth glissando, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. The budget cut out right then. The harp player was like, I'm union, okay? Yeah, I don't know. So explain to me, like, what is the lesson he learns? Like, he goes back in time, and how... enlighten me, please. I don't understand what the point of what they did was.
I thought it was going the more straightforward, kind of lame, like, you can't go home again view.
Yeah.
Like, he had this vision of Laura as being this perfect, wonderful thing, and he gets there and it's, she actually was like kind of I don't know, dullard's not the right word, but like a kind of just a hard drinking, have fun, not this amazing Rose he'd imagined. And I thought they did a really cool thing when they twisted it. And when the lights went out, or when it suddenly got silent, it's like, oh, they were all just pretending to be jerks to like get him to let go of the past so that he could try and appreciate the present. I think that was the thing. Is he had become so wrapped up in the past and nostalgia, he wasn't able to live anymore. And so they were able to shock him back into it.
I don't know, man. Like, I hear you, but it's like she wasn't that mean or disappointing. I mean, she was just like having a good time. It didn't seem like she was cruel to him or provoked any strong reaction out of him, other than just being mildly confused. Like she was just mildly confused that he was talking about having. She was
insensitive. She like
insensitive to him being like, "Oh, I'm coming from the future." I mean, you know what I mean? How would you act?
To like, if your spouse was like, or partner was like, I'm having a terrible emotional moment right now, and frankly, it sounds like I might need medical help, and you just get up and start doing a jitterbug, you're a little insensitive.
Yeah, but I feel like that is a sort of fine-tuned emotional point that gets lost in the fact that, like, it would be confusing if your spouse was like, I'm here from the future. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like the confusion of the sort of time travel conversation swallows up whatever like sort of fine-tuned emotional point he's supposed to be learning here. I feel like he's really overdoing it, much like when he runs out of the theater for no reason. He's just being dramatic, you know? Sorry. I don't know, man. It's also like, in the present day, it's not like I can't live in the moment. It's like my wife is cheating on me and I'm dying. You know what I mean? It's not like...
Right.
It's not a failure of appreciation. He's living under crappy circumstances.
Right, but he's also resigned to the circumstances. He's kind of given up he sees his wife cheating on him and he's not angry or like, I want a divorce or I'm going to go confront them. He's just like, yeah, everything sucks. So when he comes back, he starts fighting again. You get the impression not only will he be catty to the director, but he'll probably file for divorce.
What a wonderful happy ending. And then he files divorce proceedings in the Twilight Zone. I don't know. I don't understand the concept of going back in time and having everyone agree to pretend to teach you a lesson. I don't know. Like, to me, like, you compare this episode to Walking Distance in so many obvious ways. It's like a person goes back in time to what is presumably a more nostalgic past and then learns they can't go home again. In Walking Distance, what was so elegant about it is that, like, every bad thing that happens to Marty Sloan is, like, kind of could be seen as just, like, an accident, kind of almost, you know? But it's because he's where he doesn't belong. Whereas in this one, it's, like, it's not, like, it's, like, time travel plus, like...
Well,
some weird, like, it's like time travel plus, like, the game. Like, it's really bizarre.
You're forgetting Ghost, Fred.
True, fair enough.
The thing is, it seems like time travel, but it's actually Ghost.
I always forget Ghost.
No, I'm being silly but serious. Like, he thinks he's gone back to the past, but what he's actually gotten is, like, a vision from, like, the dead, basically imploring him to live.
So he hasn't gone back in time. But why is it 1927 then?
That's all just part of the fantastical creation that the ghosts have made for him.
Okay, so is he physically still in the same place, though, or have they transported him to, like, a set?
I think he's passed out in a closet.
Okay, got it. There's just someone holding, like, a bottle of ether under his nose this whole time.
Right. Yeah.
What we doing next?
Bios and trivia. Bios and trivia. Bios and trivia. Yeah. Scott, Zickery, Martin Grams Jr., Zickery and Grams, and IMDb.
According to, I think this was from the Zickery book, the hint of the Southern accent that the director has was the product of an in-joke between the actor Sidney Pollack and the director Buzz Kulick based on a director-producer that they both knew and were making fun of and didn't really care for. So it is kind of a funny, weird touch to have, you know, this hotshot New York or LA director sound like he's kind of like a Georgia drill sergeant, but apparently it's based on a real person.
Interesting.
And then I don't have any source to back this up. I just found it interesting that the main character's name is Booth Templeton, because that sounds quite a bit like Booth Tarkington to me, the author of Magnificent Ambersons. So I wondered if there was any intentional.
Maybe it's just sometimes just certain names sound like a writer's name or an actor's name. Maybe that was just sort of floating around, and I guess it wasn't Serling who wrote this episode, but in the writer's head.
I don't know.
So,
what about you?
Well, from the Martin Graham's book, we already got the thing about the pool being from Queen of the Nile. Small little tidbit is that Ford donated most of the cars for the Twilight Zone, and so kind of like an acute thing, they also donated a Model T to be the car in this. So it was not like the Rickenbacker from Mr. Beavis. It was a Ford.
Nice. It just occurs to me, the fact that I was able to spot that was the pool from Queen of the Nile without reference to the Graham's book kind of makes me a bit uncomfortable.
You've become Graham's.
It makes me feel like the one I used to mock, I have become.
You're slowly becoming him. You just look in the mirror, you're like, oh, God. Not that he's not a handsome man. Anyway, so that was about it from Graham's. I actually have another Twilight Zone trivia book all about the scores of the Twilight Zone by Reba Wisner called Dimensions of Sound. Hopefully we're going to do an interview with her soon. But just a little tidbit is that this was a score by Jeff Alexander. He didn't write that many scores. This was one of the few he did do. And it was just kind of neat how they're like two different kinds of music. There's the score and the jazz music that he wrote for the Speakeasy. And she points out that it kind of like the jazz is really frenetic as opposed to the score for the rest of it, which is very sentimental and romantic and slow, sort of neatly contrasting the two things. She actually says points out the time period, but I'm guessing that she hasn't heard your little ghost theory. So,
well, no, the ghosts were trying to evoke 1927, of course, but I'm saying.
So they hired Jeff Alexander to do the score for the Speakeasy.
Okay, so for bios, Brian Aaron played Booth Templeton. In 1940, he was nominated for an Academy Award as Best Supporting Actor in the movie Juarez for playing the Emperor Maximilian. He published his autobiography in 1969, and 10 years later he published a biography of his friend George Saunders entitled A Dreadful Man, which I found a cute name for him. According to Zickery's book, he was very much, this character. He was kind of an older, dignified British actor who... It's amusing to think about this. Before the Twilight Zone was kind of an understood phenomenon, he read it and apparently was just baffled and didn't understand what to make of it. And then people had to kind of show him an episode or two, and he got that supernatural things can happen in fiction, I guess. Pippa Scott played Laura Templeton. She was in a 70s TV movie called Bad Ronald, which sounds like it could be kind of a cult classic. And it was directed by Buzz Kulick. So I kind of want to track it down.
I got to work with him again.
Intersecting lines, yeah. Sidney Pollack played Arthur Willis. He is a famous producer, director, actor. He made his big screen acting debut in War Hunt, where he met fellow actor Robert Redford. They've gone on to have a lifelong friendship and worked on 7 films over the years. His biggest success was probably Out of Africa, which was nominated for 11 Academy Awards, got 7 wins. He also won for Best Direction and Best Picture for that movie. He also, I think, got a ton of nominations for Tootsie, the kind of famous comedy with Dustin Hoffman. So, kind of a big, huge name. It's kind of interesting to see him. Such a young role.
It's interesting. I didn't recognize him when I saw it. I was like,
which is funny because he's so
up,
recognizable when he's older, and yet I couldn't place him because I'd just never seen him so young.
Yeah.
But King Calder played Sid Sperry. He was also in the Twilight Zone episode Valley of the Shadow. Robert Haynes played a bar patron. He was also in The Silence and Time Enough at Last. It was written by E. Jack Newman. This was his only Twilight Zone episode.
Yeah.
He created a number of shows, including Police Story, which was an anthology police show, in the same way Twilight Zone was like an anthology sci-fi fantasy show. I've never heard the idea of an anthology cop show, so I thought that was an interesting concept. Neat. Apparently, he wrote the entire script in about a day. But I'm sure a lot of the scripts were churned out like that. Directed by Buzz Kulick, the father of Danny Kulick.
We're still rolling with that.
Yes.
Father of JoJo Kulick.
Yes. And that brings us to the
Inevitable.
MST3K. So every week we try and find a connection between Mystery Science Theater 3000 and the Twilight Zone. What do we got?
This week we have two. Dave Wilcock played Marty. He also played Lou Gibson in the 8th season movie Revenge of the Creature. And Larry J. Blake played Freddy. He was in the 5th season episodes Teenage Crime Wave and Beginning of the End.
I'm trying to remember who Lou Gibson is.
I think he was like the friend of the hero, but I'm not 100% sure of that.
Let Mr. America cut into my cake, that guy?
I think so.
Damn.
Maybe, but I'm not sure.
Okay, it's funny.
Yeah, that guy's a grade A wolf. I don't know.
Yeah, cool. What about IMDb?
IMDb gives this episode a 7.5, which is kind of weird because I feel like the last 4 episodes have all been 7.5s, but so be it.
So what do you think?
I was watching this episode and I was feeling 5-ish again. I was thinking 5, but maybe a 5+ with Sidney Pollack's acting kind of pushing it a little further, just because I thought he did an enjoyable turn as the a-hole director.
The acting, sort of fittingly for an episode about actors, is very good.
Yeah. But I will say that one shot of when the club goes from chaotic and noisy and crazy to suddenly silent, and the slow pan, and I was reading all the emotions in the actress's face, and I just didn't. I guess you have some clarity issues, but for me, it was really striking and direct, and I thought it was a really nice reversal of what I thought was kind of I thought they were taking a trivial, or not a trivial, but a stereotypical situation of you can't go back again, and then they kind of turn it on its head with, the people back there are trying to help the guy out by faking that he can't go back again.
So if they just played along, then he could have had a great time.
Well, but that's not real life.
No.
He could have.
Oh, it's not real life? Well, then, jeez.
Well, it's kind of like a twist on the 16mm Shrine where
I know.
This woman wants to go back to her past, and so she gets to go live in a film. And I think we even mentioned, like, what does that mean for her? Does she die when they stop the film? Here, it's like he wants this thing, and they.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's like I see the emotions of that, but it's like it just implies such a weird, convoluted set of circumstances that it's like the emotions are lost and just trying to figure out what the F is going on. It's like, so people who are in heaven or spirits have conspired to stage a play for the benefit. Like, the whole episode needs to be about that. It's hard to get lost in the emotions when you're trying to figure out what the F is happening,
Yeah,
so it's very 5 for me.
Yeah, I think that shot really just kicks it up more than almost
it's a great
unreasonably
shot,
higher.
Yeah. But it's like,
I think
compare
the
that
shot
to the
and
shot in Walking Distance. It's like similarly good, but
it's not just the shot. It's also I really was enamored by the actress's portrayal, just because I felt like she was able to play the shades of. She had just been this kind of vapid, shrill character, and suddenly I felt like I was seeing a level of depth and sadness with her not really doing very much at all. It really impressed me. So
is that what you're calling him now, John? Her portrayal?
Yeah.
You like her portrayal?
Depth of her performance.
Okay, cool.
All
right,
so
what do you think?
Well, for a second I was thinking 8-, but you've talked me off that lofty goal. I'll say 7+.
Oh man, what a bridge! 7+ to 5. That's actually probably one of the bigger.
That's
things
I think one of our
I think it's the sentimental streak within you.
It is
what brings that out. Cool. Well, that wraps it up for the Trouble with Templeton. Thank you, Jesse, for requesting that one on Facebook. Next week, do you want to do the much requested and when the sky was opened up?
That sounds good.
Okay, requested by Matthew on Twitter, Willow via Gmail, EJ6385 via iTunes, and a bunch of other people too. People really want to request the crap out of that episode. So we will finally be doing that, not next week, but the week after. Right. So
yeah, we're going to have to take a week off as I travel, but we will get to
I was going to say a week off to really take that one in since it's so requested, but yeah. Cool. So in the meantime, if you want to get in touch with us, write us an email. John, what are the relevant details?
You could send us an email at twilightpwn, pwn@gmail.com. You can get in touch with us on Twitter at Twilight Pwn. You can check out our website, twilightpwn.tumblr.com, where we put up pictures of things we find or create related to the episodes we talk about. You could also listen to us on Stitcher or TuneIn Radio, or you could subscribe to us on iTunes. And if you're there, if you leave us a review, we'd really appreciate it. Thanks.
So for my outro question, I had written down, would you play along if you ended up back in the past? But I think we've already spent that nickel in the actual discussion. So I'll just say...
I think I would.
You would play along?
I'd try. I mean, I think it would fail, but once I saw that they weren't really... I'd maybe make a vague reference to it, but if they weren't feeling it, then I think I'd just try and enjoy the moment, because I think...
Well, I guess
I'd probably assume that I'm delusional, so I just kind of ride that train and just try and enjoy it while I was there.
And I've been riding it for years. I think it's just like the momentum of like social interaction is like you couldn't really do it for long. You just have to start playing along, you know? Like I don't think you really could just... You'd either get thrown into an insane asylum or you'd figure out a way to play along. So I think that would be my instance as well.
That's your play, yeah. Cool.
I was going to say, like, what time period or point would you go back to in your life to try and relive, but I think I know. Would be the early aughts when you and I were just young bucks.
Just
watching Wet Hot American Summer in your dorm room, talking about girls we might call.
If only we had started this podcast back then, we would be able to unseat Sharon from her seat at the top of the iTunes rating.
Damn you, Sharon! All right, cool. I'll talk to you in 2 weeks, John.
All right, later.
Lates.